Hi, my name is Phil. I'd like to talk about politics, and in this video I'd like to discuss the downbeat mood that Japanese businesses based in the UK have regarding Brexit, despite the free trade agreement that we signed with Japan last year, as well as agreed with the EU towards the end of last year. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news in politics, please subscribe to the channel and click the bell notification icon. So there was an article on Japanese business noting a survey that had taken place of UK-based Japanese companies, turning up a mixed response regarding Brexit. Even with the weak trade deal with the EU, which was welcome for them, they were definitely fearing a no deal, and also with a free trade agreement with their own country. A third of respondents said that they believed that Brexit would negatively impact their business. Negatively impact, of course, means, from our point of view, a combination of job losses and the stifling of wage growth. But what was also interesting is that about 10% said that they would be shrinking their presence in the UK as a result. Now, different ways of looking at this. I'm sure some may think, well, 10% doesn't sound so bad. And indeed, if you were talking about 10% shrinking and some others expanding to balance this effect out, and it might not be a big problem. The thing is, though, in the survey, not a single business is set to expand. So although you can say, oh, there's only 10% shrinking, and incidentally, that's 10% of the respondents, not 10% by value. Obviously, different companies have different value, employ more people, pay more wages, pay more taxes, all the rest of it. I don't know what that equates to in terms of proportion of economy. But, you know, if those 10% say represented the largest employers, the largest businesses, the ones that have the wherewithal, for example, to relocate elsewhere, hence shrink their presence in the UK, then the impact could actually be much more serious than 10% maybe sounds. But still, 10% shrinking still represents an overall shrinkage because there's 0% expanding. And in terms of what that means for people in the UK, it means, of course, an overall net reduction in jobs, both direct and indirect, because remember, the supply chain that these businesses operate in will also shrink unless other businesses pop up or expand to occupy the gaps that that shrinkage is creating. But let's be honest, this isn't happening. If there was any expansion to compensate for the businesses who say that they need to slim down in the UK, it would be plastered all over the Daily Express, and government ministers would be crowing about it every single day when they do their round of morning interviews on the telly. The only expansion that the government have actually been boasting about is the expansion of customs, the customs sector. That's the only thing they've been talking about expansion in, and that has absolutely expanded. We need loads more customs officials, and we need loads more people, logistics company working in and around the customs sector. You know, the number one reason for the downbeat mood amongst these Japanese businesses in the UK was cited as uncertainty and decreased demand in the UK economy, which is not exactly the market conditions that would encourage other businesses to spring up or to expand to fill in the gaps. Now, inevitably, a Brexiteer might look at the fact, so in this survey, it said that 84% are not planning to downscale. 10% were, presumably that means about 6% weren't sure, but 84% weren't planning to downscale. But again, without Brexit, the number would have been closer to 100%, and there would also have been a percentage, a non-zero percentage, that would be expanding. In fact, we knew that some had expansion plans from a number of major Japanese employers in the UK that have been shelved or relocated elsewhere, either Japan or another European country. Again, not a huge percentage of companies, but more than zero, which is what it would have been without Brexit. And 65% of those responding to the survey also apparently felt that Brexit would cause the UK to recover more slowly from the already heaviest economic damage that we've suffered from the coronavirus pandemic as well. So if the market that your business is operating in suddenly shrinks, and the bit that's left is not believed to be enjoying as much growth for the foreseeable future, then you tend not to be thinking of expanding that business. So it makes absolute sense that we're not seeing signs of people wanting to expand. Because unless you happen to be in a growth part of the economy, that's not going to happen. And of course that does exist. It will and it does exist. The overall economy can perform very poorly, but there's always individual winners and losers that make up any economic story. You know, you can have an absolute economic boom in a country and yet there'll still be losers. And you can have economic decline as we're having at the moment and there can still be winners. You know, for example, like I've said, due to the severe trade barriers that our so-called, this is what gets me, conservatives bill themselves as free trade enthusiasts, and yet they are the first people in history to actually erect trade barriers in peacetime. But anyway, because of this, there is a sudden and massive need for expansion of logistics. Companies who can provide warehousing, for example, are doing rather well. Companies who can offer their services in managing the new paperwork are also going to see growth. Of course, they need employees. They're struggling to find the staff, but there's the demand is there. Of course, the net impact is shrinking businesses, which is why the economy overall is going to continue to lag behind our neighbours. And also, when you look at those growth areas, they're not anything that really adds value to our economy. So why the warehousing? Because we need to stockpile more. It's not because we're selling more stuff. It's just we can't get the stuff in a timely manner, so we have to stockpile more of it. So businesses are having to spend more money on warehousing, not because they're going to sell more products, which means the unit cost that they have to be able to pass on to the customer goes up. Same thing with logistics companies in terms of dealing with the paperwork. You know, it's not to allow them to sell more stuff. It may be to be selling less stuff, but it's just costing more to sell them more stuff. Again, gets passed on to the customer. So it's not adding value to the economy, it's just costing more. And the other thing to note when it comes to shrinking their businesses is it doesn't actually mean shrinking their businesses as such in the global sense. It means shrinking their presence in the UK. So, for example, there have been some Japanese-run financial service providers in the UK that have moved their business to EU countries, as a lot of service companies have, of course. So our loss is the gain of other European centres. And this doesn't mean that the Japanese trade deal hasn't been useful for some of these companies. In fact, it's actually helped manufacturers enormously. Japanese car manufacturers, for example, located in the UK as a European base of operations. They didn't locate in the UK to sell cars to the UK. Some of them are sold in the UK, of course. It was the place to be to access Europe. But, you know, with the difficulty in accessing that European market from Britain now, which is outside every single trade organisation in Europe, the only splat of land in that situation, by the way, then they've actually needed the UK-Japan trade deal, but that's not helped us, because what it means now is that they can relocate some of their operations back to Japan and take advantage of the fact that they've got a free trade agreement with both the EU and the UK. But that still means downsizing in the UK, of course. The only upside I can see is, so for car manufacturing, of course, if the bits that remain in Britain will ideally need to source parts from Britain as well. So there's an awful lot of trade of car components across the Brexit border, or in terms of supply chains now. That's probably going to need to change, because rules of origin means that these car manufacturers, or indeed manufacturers of any product, need to be able to show that it's mostly a British product, including the components used, in order to qualify for tariff-free trade with the EU. So if it comes from outside, it won't class as British, in which case tariffs will be applied. So that could, in theory, provide a boost to manufacturers of components in Britain. Now, I say in theory because I don't actually know, because just from that point of view it makes sense, but then there'll also be factories outside of Britain that will be doing likewise. That is sourcing parts from inside their own internal market, where they may have bought them from the UK before. So it may just be a rebalancing of the supply chain that still results in a net loss for Britain, because Northern Ireland plus the rest of Europe is basically a lot larger than our rain-soaked plague island. Finally, another issue that these companies felt were negatives of Brexit was in the difficulty in getting to grips with the new systems. So the deal was agreed exactly 1 week before it was implemented. This gave no time for anyone to actually implement anything as a result of the deal. There were things being implemented that we knew were going to be needed, pulling out of the customs union single market. But in terms of things related to the deal, there was no time to implement anything. Not for businesses, not for government. And this is why some trade had to stop temporarily. Some of it will start up again, in addition to that which has stopped for good. So labelling, for example, had to be changed. Can't do that overnight, takes months. That's why some companies that are not trading at the moment say that they will do later on. The new paperwork is still a mystery to some companies, but that also will improve. But how quickly do they think that the UK will adapt to these changes? Because in the survey, only 20% of these Japanese businesses that responded to the survey were even moderately satisfied with the British government's business planning. Now, in other words, they have no confidence that Boris Johnson's government are acting in the best interests of business or growing the economy in the UK. So it's not just that they are concerned with where we are right now. They're not at all confident in where we're going. So there we are. Interesting insight, I thought, into foreign investment in the UK. No plans for expansion, some plans for contraction. Don't think that was on the side of the Brexit bus either, was it? But those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. Hope you found the video interesting. If you did, don't forget to click the like button. And if you'd like to support the channel further, please also click the Patreon link for details. And until next time, I'll see you later.